Talk About Kevin is a 2011 film directed by Lynn Ramsey. We last saw her name on episode 1, I believe. You Weren't Even Here? Is that the name of that movie? I didn't remember at the time, and I don't remember it now. The movie stars Tilda Swinton as a mother who is coming to grips with something bad that her son Kevin, played by Ezra Miller, did at his high school. I'll give you 2 guesses what it is, and you'll only need 1 guess. I don't know if the ending of this movie was supposed to be shocking, because it telegraphs it pretty aggressively. But man, was this movie in love with its own editing. It cuts back and forth in time, and it uses these transitions where red paint is used in one scene, and she's washing her hands and it becomes blood when it flashes back. It just loves its own transitions in a way that was kind of attention-grabbing and nauseating at the same time. I get it, you're being clever. Tell me a story. And with that, the performances were pretty good in this movie. Swinton's pretty good. Ezra Miller's super creepy. John C. Reilly plays Ezra Miller's dad, and he's actually pretty good in the film too. It's a dramatic role. He has some comedic parts, but it's mostly dramatic. But he's really good. Man, this movie does not evolve over its running time. The drama that plays out with Tilda Swinton's character is established in the first 10 minutes and doesn't change for the entire running time. It's a good performance from Swinton, but this movie is in love with itself and thinks it's being really clever, and it's really just kind of pedestrian and dull. The Spectacular Now. Did I like this movie? I think I liked this movie. I'm trying to remember. I should start doing these like the day after I watch a flick, because I'm looking at the movie poster and I remember watching a Miles Teller movie with Shailene Woodley. I remember being entertained, if not wowed. Brightburn is a 2019 horror movie which has more guns than you can count. It's written by Brian Gunn and Mark Gunn and produced by James Gunn. And they try to establish a new genre with this movie, superhero horror. And the concept is a relatively easy concept. What if Superman, instead of being driven by national pride and honor, he's driven by anger and ego? If Superman were a bad guy, he'd be nearly unstoppable. And this movie, while it wants to be a new genre of film, is just a straight-up horror movie. A fun one, an enjoyable one, but it doesn't really ever get out of the mode of being a horror film. The movie's pretty gory, and there's at least one sequence that made me very, very squeamish. I have a problem with things that happen to people's eyeballs in movies. So it does the horror elements of its storyline really well. What it doesn't do particularly well is the transition from being a child to being a monster. It's somewhat abrupt, and it's alluded that it's not under his own will, but it would have been nice if that was a little more fleshed out, if we saw kind of his build up to being this supervillain. We're never not afraid of him in some way, shape, or form. And that development of the supervillain persona is something that the movie Chronicle did really well. I know I've heard this movie compared to Chronicle a lot, but I didn't have a terrible time with it. It has some pretty good set pieces along the way. And it looks like they're going to try to set up a Brightburn cinematic universe, which I look forward to seeing what they do with it.